Welcome back to Relationships Over Reps with Rich Lansky and Johnny Parker. Coach, how are you doing today?
Coach, I couldn't be better. Good to hear your voice. And I'm just really excited about hopefully giving back something to younger coaches and as a way of repaying my mentors who helped me.
I would definitely agree with that. I consider you one of my mentors, so that's a good thing. Um, well, today's topic, for those of you who've been with us, we're going to shift gears a little bit. In the past, we've talked about how we see athletes as they could be, not as they are, always thinking of their future development, future potential. Once we've done that as coaches, I think it's important that we think about how do we help the athletes to believe that? How do we help them to believe that they are capable of so much more than they currently are? And let's explore that topic today, Coach. Why don't you take us off?
All right, Coach. Coach, that's something I dealt with a pretty good bit when I was actively coaching. But I think this, Coach, that when a player does not share your vision for how good he can be, then I think you need to do everything you can to convince him that he can be better than he thinks. So I would tell a player, this is kind of sarcastic, but I would tell a player after a couple of times where his effort or performance didn't match my vision, I just tell him, you know, son, the thing that worries me about you is that my expectations for you are higher than the expectations you have for yourself. And I've been around. I know what it ought to look like. You have got everything you need to be a really, really outstanding player. Now you're just pretty good, but you can be real good. So join the club and understand that you're capable of a lot more.
I, I think that's right on target. I really think that we went back to athletes knowing that they can depend on us because we're reliable and we're consistent. We're going to be the same coach to them every day. I think once they recognize that, that then what we're saying has more meaning, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And coach, another the follow up to that or the active part of that is when a player does something well. You just I did it very loud too. I would say, see what you can do. See what you can do. The only limits you have are the ones you put on yourself. Now we're gonna eliminate those, and you're gonna become the outstanding player that you have the ability and the mindset to do.
Yeah, I think really important going back to that acknowledgement. When things are done, we would definitely want to praise in public, but we want to make sure that athlete recognizes that we see and we recognize when they are making those achievements, making those steps to being the athlete they could be, as opposed to the athlete they currently are. And I think part of that goes back to something we talked about the other day, Coach, and that is the self-determination theory, made pretty famous in literature, sports psych literature, by Ryan and DC. And that talks about how athletes, or all humans, in fact, are driven by three basic psychological needs: autonomy, which is control over their actions; competence, mastery, and effectiveness of their task; and relatedness, a sense of connection and belonging. And that relatedness, that sense of connection and belonging, I think we can really, as coaches, enforce that, reinforce that, so that they know they are part of this team and that we recognize when they're improving in their mastery and effectiveness and competence. And I think that gives them some kind of feeling of control over their own actions. They're going to work harder because then they're going to be achieving those goals and becoming the athlete they could be, the ones we have already talked about with them.
Yes, yeah, but and coach, you've got to open their mind before you can get them to perform at the highest level of which they're capable. They've got to believe it first. And coach, I think this too. We got to get them to. When I say buy in, I think of this saying: that one man with a commitment is worth 100 with a belief. So not only does he have to believe he can achieve at a high level, he has to work and perform every day at a higher, and higher level until he gets to where you think he ought to be and can be. And, Coach, I think that success is built on a lot of small successes. Again, a great lift, a PR, something he does in terms of leadership, anything you can find to praise him for and to point out to him how that's all a step in his march toward becoming a really good player.
You're dead on right there. And again, it goes back to how do we encourage, motivate, and support the athlete in that journey to develop that mastery. And like you said, one step at a time. I mean, if you want to get to the very top level, you got some stairs to climb. If you got stairs to climb, the best way to take them is one step at a time. So they got on Monday, they hit a PR in the clean. On Tuesday, they decided to step up and they gave a little extra effort and asked you if they could stay and do some extra work. On Wednesday, all of a sudden, they got one more rep on the squat with the same weight they did last week. Whatever these examples are, these are all small successes that, when stringed together, make a bigger chain of a greater success and help them to develop not only belief in themselves, but they actually see themselves getting better. So the proof is in the pudding, so to speak.
Absolutely. And, Coach, one of Coach Parcells' sayings was that confidence is born of demonstrated ability. And if a player's performance is significantly lower than what you see is his capability, then it has to be, as we both said, one step at a time, one step at a time, one success at a time. And I did this too. I put players in positions to exceed. And, that it's beginning when they're just learning. you know, you got to praise them, point out errors, and then tell them, "Oh, now that's easy. We can fix that. Don't worry about it. We get that fixed. Your clean is going to go up 20 pounds. So just, we're going to work on that till you get that right." And then when they get it, again, praise them to the skies. And, Coach, after a while, they want that sugar. They want that praise. So, they'll be embarrassed sometimes, but I think the main times, the main thing that happens is that uh, they get to seeing themselves as doing something really, really outstanding. In other words, you build on those successes, and in his mind, hopefully, you get him to envision himself as what you envision him as. That's the whole key, is transferring your vision to his.
Yep, and that
Again,
goes.
I think, go ahead, Coach. I'm
I
sorry.
was going to say, you just reinforced what we talked about before. That goes back to the sense of autonomy. When they feel that they have control over what's going on, they feel a sense of accomplishment, that mastery, that second part. But that autonomy is, hey, if I go and I work with Coach Parker, or if I go and I work with Coach Lansky, and I go and I give 100% of my effort for that 95 minutes that I'm in the weight room with them, and then I follow the directions of that sports dietitian about what I should be eating. And I listen to recovery specialists about how much sleep I should get. Now I'm making decisions and I'm establishing habits that help me to be better at my craft and achieve my goals. And all of a sudden, when they look in the mirror, they're going to see that athlete that we saw the potential in long ago.
Very good, Coach. Very good. Coach, I hate to keep saying that I agree 100%, but I do. But again, Coach, the simplest explanation of what we're trying to do here is transfer our vision of that athlete to him, or maybe a better way of putting it is getting him to see himself as you see him. And that might be a ways off in the distance, or you might be just a step away. But
That's
and
a,
then, coach, when he does have that vision, then he's got to work relentlessly to make all of that come true. That doesn't mean once you become what I think you can become, that doesn't mean, now you got to get out of jail free card.
no,
That
but
just means that that you can see what will be the end result of all of your work. Then, coach, when they have success in the weight room or out on the track or whatever, point out how those successes will aid him on the field, because that's the ultimate
yeah,
playing better.
yeah. I've caught myself more than one time talking to somebody like at halftime and telling one of my players, "Hey, do you realize how good you really are? Do you realize what you have in you? Because I see it every day in the weight room. I see it at practice. Now let's go out there and show everybody else what I already know, what you know on the inside, how good you really are, how good you can be. You have the tools. Let's go execute. Let's get this done. Those kind of motivational things pointing to those athletes, that helps with their confidence. That helps when all of a sudden
Or
they think that there's somebody that believes in them, even sometimes even more than they believe in themselves at this point.
Absolutely, coach. And the thing is, as long as they are making the effort, they might not be making the steps from time, but as long as they're making the effort, then you have got to keep reminding them of how good you think they can be. And coach, you have to remember, success is never final and failure is never fatal. And by the same token, failure is not fatal, as long as you assign him tasks that he can do and do well. So, coach, that saying about success is never fatal. Some people are just so easily crushed or destroyed because their feeling of self worth is not high enough. So, you know, not only do they have to see themselves performing as you see them, but they have to see themselves also as a kind of person to whom succeeding is important. It has become very, very important. I can do this. I'm gonna do this. And I'm gonna win a starting job. Or I'm gonna contribute to our team winning. All of those little thoughts are a byproduct of you telling that player your vision of him as he can be and not ever relenting.
And those qualities and characteristics, we as coaches that are authentic, we really want those qualities and characteristics to transcend the sporting environment. We'd like to see them manifest itself in their day-to-day dealings with their family, if they're married with a spouse, or with their children, if they're a father or mother, or in their workplace, or as a coach themselves one day with their athletes. Those are the type of things that will allow them to be successful, and that success isn't going to be measured just on how many yards they gained or how many points they scored or how much weight they lifted, but what kind of impact they make in other people's lives as well.
Hey, Coach, uh, along with when you were speaking just now, that reminded me again of the first coaching clinic that I ever attended. I've talked about this earlier, but Coach Bill Battle said, if you can, if your kids can be around you for 3 or 4 years and not become better people, you're in the wrong profession. And that's certainly true, Coach. Success on the field is very shallow and hollow if it's not accompanied by success as a person.
100% agree. And I think that's one of the reasons we're so passionate about this topic of authentic coaching and how this approach can help us to get the very most out of our athletes, but also set our athletes up for getting the most out of themselves and the people that they're around. Hey, Coach, in the past, you and I have talked a little bit about your different stages of developing feelings of self mastery or feelings of achievement. Do you remember those? Maybe go over those again for me.
Very well. That might be one of the few original ideas I ever had, but I believe in it very, very strongly. Do you want me to do that?
Please, I think our audience would really benefit from hearing these.
Okay. Coach, I think that any player, coach, or teacher, pupil, employer, employee relationship has to begin with an element of fear. Not physical fear, but fear maybe of getting moved down to second team, fear of incurring your displeasure in front of the group, fear of getting a lower grade. And coach, that element recedes over time, but you never lose it. Coach, I worked for Coach Parcells for 11 years, and I never lost my fear of him. Anytime he'd walk by the weight room or walk in, and I would think, oh my gosh, does he think I'm working him hard enough? Does he think I'm working him too hard? Does he think that I'm pushing enough, demanding enough of the players? Does he think I'm encouraging them enough? I never lost that fear. And to be honest, I still have it. Now, coach, then that evolves into a feeling of professional respect. And the verbiage would go like this, man, that Coach Lansky, now he doesn't play. I ain't getting on his bad side. I don't want him, to come down on me. And but I've been doing what Coach Lansky says, and I'm already better. That dude knows what the heck he's talking about, and I'm gonna listen to him. And then the third stage, Coach, is that nobody's ever believed in me like Coach Lansky. Nobody's ever called out in front of the team my successes and bragging on me in front of others. Nobody's ever expected so much of me, but Coach Lansky really believes in me. And I'm going to do the very best I can with Coach Lansky because I don't want to let him down. And then, Coach, the ultimate, and you can see it in their eyes when this occurs. And by the way, there's no time limit or timeline on any of these. But the ultimate, the fourth one is this, is that, Coach Lansky's got me doing my best in this class. My GPA has gone up each semester. I have uh, done, I am doing my best in every class, every single class. I'm doing my best in our sport, in training for our sport. I am trying to be the best son, the best brother, best uh, teacher, best anything that I can be. Certainly the best student that I can be. So those that is the foundation of my belief in motivating and in it just having a positive effect on young people, getting them to believe in themselves. Oh yeah, and I didn't even finish number four. Is I'm doing the best I can in everything. I like this feeling, and I'm gonna keep on doing my best because I don't want to let myself down. That's the ultimate.
Coach, those are awesome 4 steps. That's amazing. I know that you came up with this, but it aligns so well with that self-determination theory that we were talking about before, because you have your autonomy, you have your mastery, and then those steps that involve the athlete working hard for that coach and that give and take, that support from the coach and the encouragement from the coach, and the athlete wanting to do well for the coach and liking the acknowledgments he gets. That's all about relatedness. I mean, this is all about relationships. It always goes back to it. I mean, we couldn't set this thing up any better, no matter what story we have, because it's a pervasive theme that runs through everything that the two of us have done over the last 9 decades together. So I really appreciate you sharing with us, Coach. If you want,
Uh, Coach, I think too, is part of that fear. You don't want them going coming in the room in your room trembling, but Coach, part of that of your expectations for them are you setting a standard very early, a standard that everybody has to meet. Then, then those that are capable to go past the standard into the realm of excellence. And but Coach, the standard is the standard, and it cannot be compromised, no matter how good a player is. There's a certain level of expectation that everybody has to meet. So, if we're talking about a particular kid, that goes after a while. That goes without saying. You can't threaten them. Oh, hey, if you do that again, you have to stand in the corner or any of that silly stuff. You can't threaten them. Something like a standard, you have to tell them the first day, and then there's zero tolerance. You cannot, you cannot diverge or dip below the standard. And
Coach,
yep,
I agree so strongly with that. If you ask any of my classes, especially my strength and conditioning weight training classes, and you put a question on my funnel that said the standard is the blank, they would fill out the standard is the standard. The expectations don't change, and you must all meet that standard. And if you're not at that standard, it's time to work to rise up to that standard. And then on the other hand, it's time for us as coaches, as we've said before, to put the put the yoke on our shoulders, and we're going to help that athlete, motivate that athlete, guide that athlete, and impact that athlete in a way that they can meet that standard. That's what our job is.
absolutely. And Coach, I think players have to see, not be told, but they have to see that you're invested in their success. That it's important to you that they succeed. So if you give them a task and they fail at it, you know, Coach, I was quite willing to take the blame for any of their failures, but I also was equally willing to give them every bit of the credit for any successes they achieved along the road to excellence.
One of my coaching associates, Pat Cullen Carroll, and I were talking a few months back, and I remember him saying, you know, when they do something great, it's their achievement. When something goes wrong, we need to look in the mirror and figure out what we could have done better that could help them do a better job next time. And that's a responsibility that we need as coaches to take seriously. And if we do not take it seriously, like that one coach told you at your first coaching, if our kids aren't better from being around us, we're in the wrong business. Um, one,
Absolutely.
one thing that I wanted to touch on before we sign off today, um, we talked about them kind of giving them setting them up in positions to succeed. I think when we do that, it's important that we also remind them that there's a greater picture, a greater level that we're trying to get to. I've had this conversation with athletes in the past after, um, a performance that might not have been the best, and the conversation goes something like this: it didn't go our way this time, but I'm going to do a better job. I'm going to make sure that I give you all the effort, all the time, all the expertise. And if I don't know something, I'm going to go find somebody that does know it so that you have all the tools that you need so that you can show everybody how good you really are. So I
That's
think,
very good.
yes, then we shift some of the blame. So we're not pointing fingers like we've talked in the past, but at the same
Yep.
time, we're creating that relationship where this is a 1-2, this is a partnership. We're going to work together to try and get better. And I think we need to kind of keep that in our mind, because if it's just about you or us as our reputation as a coach, and we're just about the accolades, we're not going to be very successful. Not in sport, not in business, not in life. As we kind of come to the end of this, is there anything that you'd like to close with today?
Uh, Coach, uh, I think that what we what we do to their body is second to what we do to their mind. That they have to believe it before they can achieve it. That's an old saying. But if the mind can believe it, the body can achieve it. And as long as we set reasonable goals and taking small steps to excellence, then coach, not only will that person become a better player, but he'll become a better person because he sees that doing your best is rewarded in life as well as in the weight room.
Wholeheartedly agree with you, Coach. And I think we can touch more on this on our next session too. Coach, thank you so much. We're a little shorter today, but we'll come back with a little more next time. But once again, this is Rich Lansky and my mentor and friend, Johnny Parker. And we thank you for listening to us as we expound on the benefits of stressing relationships over reps and authentic coaching. Coach, thank you again, my friend.
Coach, always a pleasure and an honor to be included with you.
I appreciate that. And the honor is mine as well. People, if you like this podcast, please go ahead and subscribe on the YouTube page. Please give us some feedback. Let us know what you'd like us to talk about. We do have some guests that are going to be joining us next week. And as we talk about authentic coaching, and we hope you find everything helpful and something that you can use with your athletes and in your life every day. Coach, thank you again for Relationships Over Reps. Signing off, and we'll talk to you soon.